Let's just say we're all fabulous and leave it at
Yeah,
that.
let's do that.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Because I
second
think that's
that.
a good thing.
I'll take
So let's just go with women are awesome.
yes.
Carry on.
So you said that you're using your platform basically for your power for good. How can other white women like help to?
As white women who want to be in communion and community with a wide range of women, is stepping back in whatever space you're in, figuring out what the needs are, and engaging in a way that's actually useful, not assuming that you have the answer, not assuming that you have a comparable experience that you would like to share. All those kinds of things are just day-to-day ways to be to use that privilege to move mountains, really, right? Because structural change, the people who control the structures, which at this moment are white people, those people need to change the structures. So whatever spaces you're in, running spaces, work spaces, family spaces, neighborhood spaces, with your kid on at their whatever activity, you know, use your privilege in powerful ways. And if you can, you know, in my example of just the way that I've tried to raise money for charity organizations, I'm very intentional about those charities in trying to find ones that are doing important work in the place that I'm actually living, or in organizations that I have some connection to, where there is a I have more of a responsibility, right? There's more of a requirement on me to not just look to gain money for those organizations, but to also invest myself in them, and to learn and think hard about what that means for my daily life. And I think that's what we can all do. But you know, generally speaking, white women in the running community, don't be talking about women in running as though there's a universal, and don't be all about centering whiteness. That would be great too. Be really really good. So that's probably the shortest answer I've ever given to that sort of a question. Sorry.
I appreciate that. Like
Yeah.
you're supporting so many amazing like things. I think that we should try to spotlight all of them. So you're a sociologist as well.
So, uh, so yes and no.
Okay.
So my PhD is actually in cultural studies.
Okay.
So I'm trained. So I run a department of interdisciplinary studies. So in that department, we have American studies, gender and women's studies, peace and conflict studies, Latinx studies, African American studies, urban studies. So I actually do work that's at the intersection of the social sciences and the humanities. So I play fast and loose. I always tell people, like, just like I want to live 10 lives and I am an omnivore in all of my sporting activities, I picked an interdisciplinary field to get a doctorate in because I couldn't really decide, and I had really big questions I wanted to try to answer, and I like to pick and choose all the methods and stuff that I could use. So Tiffany and I overlap quite a bit in our training and our theoretical interests and actually our scholarship. But I pull some things in from the humanities as well. So I do that, and I sit on a couple of boards. I head up a couple things, and I don't know. I keep myself fairly busy. But yeah, so I write very, very broadly about race and immigration and gender, and how they all come together, and how that has played out historically and how it's played out culturally, and a little bit of everything. But they all cycle around issues of social justice um, and issues of equity. So, however that's played out. I had a former career as a social worker. I used to work with survivors of domestic violence. I wrote a piece for a newspaper in Minnesota. Let's see, it must have been last fall, or last summer, I guess at this point, in the wake of George Floyd's murder, because there was a whole lot of conversation about how, people were shocked that this happened in Minnesota. What? What? So my first book that I wrote actually has to do with the Twin Cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul, which is where that took place 100 years ago, and it's a close look at the ways in which the very the very deeply embedded racism of those spaces was being played out, and how in one part of the book talking about how the cops turned a blind eye. So it's 100 years ago, right? So I wrote an op-ed for a newspaper out there saying, just in case any of you would like to continue this conversation about how this is shocking to you,
Right.
let me share a couple photos with you and also some information.
Some facts of how this should not be
I've
so.
got some pushback from that. I recently got some pushback and some nasty emails about something I wrote a couple weeks ago about educational equity and race relations. Anyway, it's amazing. It's amazing how many people are invested in the status quo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's again,
Yeah.
I've got a platform and I can say things, so now I say them.
Yeah. Well, just
Okay.
so like just as many people are gonna appreciate this, then they probably won't write you emails, but they're gonna appreciate what you're saying too.
What words of empowerment would you give to other women who are looking, to either like start running or face, certain challenges in their
Mhm.
journey as well?
Yeah. So I have a few thoughts. One is that I've been thinking about this recently. Running doesn't ask a whole lot of us. I know sometimes people hear about running and they think it's, wow, that's hard. But really running doesn't ask that much of us. If we're feeling down, if we're struggling, what running asks is that you just put one foot in front of the other. It does not matter how fast you go. It does not actually matter how many of those steps you take. It's just about putting one foot in front of the other. And that is really what it's about. And I think many, many women of all ages, some more than others, but are really, really beat down by the world at large. And that looks different for different women in different socioeconomic positions, different ethno-racial groups. Like, it is not all the same, not all the same. But running is something that doesn't ask a lot of us. So that's one. Going along with that is, if you run, you're a runner, right? Who's a runner? Oh, are you running? Great, you're a runner. That's fabulous, right? That would be my second. The other is to encourage women to find what things give them joy about moving their body. Like, what is it? Is it about the way it makes you feel when you're done, which is awesome, right? Go do it. Is it, that on a really hard day, you go around the block, or you go a mile, or you go 10 miles, and you have a moment to step outside of your routine and just be with yourself, right? That precious, I mentioned this earlier, but that precious time to just be with yourself and not be burdened by other people's demands. And I was a young mom trying to run with a baby and a toddler, and I remember at a certain point where I realized that my son in the running stroller weighed more than me pushing the running stroller. Like, this is not easy, but still getting out there was time that it broke up the routine. So I would say that. And it allows you to get out of your head and into your body. And I think we as women have really complicated relationships with our bodies, and moving our bodies, and for me at least, moving my body in places, either natural spaces or places that I don't know, right? Places that are new to me. I've had adventures all over the world, mostly from being in a place and getting up in the morning and going running, not exactly knowing where I was, and you just see things you wouldn't expect, and you have these revelations. So running, I would say, if you're struggling with your body, if you are not sure, you have this love-hate affair with it, you know getting out there and moving it gets you out of your head and really respecting the fact that your body is there and it's serving you, right? It's serving you. It's doing this amazing thing, and that's what it's doing. So, I mean, those are some of the things that I would say. Mostly, I would just encourage women to do what gives them joy. And it does not matter if the thing you're doing doesn't give the person next to you joy. That's not your bother. We are really good at figuring out as women what makes everybody else happy. We are really good at judging ourselves. And you have this one body, and you can move it however you want, and get out there and do it. And I have long, I mentioned I had taught this class that I developed for my students. in the process of, I'm going to be going through a coaching course later this spring, and part of that is just to get some street cred, but I've long wanted to figure out a way to just be available to mentor and facilitate women who want to find a way to use, whether it's hiking or walking or running, to just be kind to themselves and come to more awareness of who they are, but just find some joy in life. There's enough hard stuff out there that I think this can bring people joy individually, and through it I have, through it, connect you to other people, if that's what you want, but connect you to yourself first and foremost. And if you do that, your world also opens up.
It definitely touched me, a lot of the things that you said. So like I can resonate with a lot of things that you
Oh,
said. It was
well,
very,
I'm glad.
so I'm sure that our viewers, a lot of our viewers will be able to get inspired and get empowered from your words as well.
Well, thank you. I hope so. And I've been inspired by watching some of your other interviews and know all the other amazing women who are out there. So it is a joy and an honor to be part of these conversations. And I thank you for letting me be here with you.